Vikas, thank you so much for joining us here on Mirror Now. What an absolute pleasure to have you here. Can I start by asking you why you are calling Imaginary Rain the greatest work of your life? You've done so much. How is this the greatest? You never know. The greatest could be coming in the next 10, 15 years.
I think this is not a book. It's a story of Indian cuisine. It's a story of the forgotten ones. When we take these big journeys and big risks abroad, we tend to forget who actually got us there, what their journeys have been. So I want to tell that story thinking that there is a woman who runs a failed restaurant in New York. And how do I connect the dots? So, what happens is that whatever we are talking about Indian cuisine, it's all collective wisdom, collective culture, which gets passed on to us. And one of us, out of millions, gets an opportunity to perform on the world stage, right? So I kept thinking about it, that why is it so unappreciated for the people who actually sacrificed much more than you and whose names were not mentioned when you got the Michelin stars or announced for you. So I said, Shreya, let me take a route of telling a story which is very compelling about a female cook who's failed in New York. She comes to India and she gets inspired to cook one more time. So मुझे लगा कि बहुत important story है. Been living in New York for 23 years. I thought it was a compelling story to tell, and that's why you have Imaginary Rain.
Is it semi-autobiographical? I read somewhere that you've based parts of it on your own grandmother. Is that true?
इसीलिए मैं डरा था. This is what I was scared of, to release this book and the movie. Because everybody is going to directly compare this to, is it semi-autobiographical? Is it actually a reality turned into fiction? So I have come to a conclusion, and I've been writing for more than 2 decades. There's nothing as fiction. It's always a reality which inspires you. Your brain has been conditioned and programmed in such a way that you can express that incident in a different way. It's your translation of that incident. So there's nothing as fiction, right? There's some reality in that truth. So yes, when I made the Last Color movie, everybody kept asking me, you're the only person who's qualified now to make a movie about cooking and a film about it. So मैंने कहा, hold on, I love to explore this opportunity because Shivana ji was not available and I didn't want to make this movie without her. So I think that whole thing, that the crossroads connect. So that is why I say that it's not fiction, it's not a reality, it's something in between. It's something in between to glorify Indian cuisine in the West.
As I was reading your book, something interesting caught my eye. You mentioned something called a chef's wrist. What does that mean, and do you have it as well?
Both my wrists are injured, both of them. Because when you're in training, what happens is that most of us use our right hands. But when you're making dough, you use both your hands. But the pressure is always on the right hand. So I realized when I was young, every time I'll see my grandmom in the sun, especially in the winter sun, I see her doing this. It was a childhood thing for me. And I remember it so clearly. So in this movie, I wanted to give a reference of that in a very surrogate way, where Shivana asked me, who's playing Parade now, that her wrist is always hurting, that she always keeps folding it, unfolding it like this. So which I used to see my grandmom, because Indian food is very difficult. Forget about cooking in volumes or big batches, but Indian cuisine is very tough because our cuisine emphasizes on fresh breads, which uses a lot of wrists, right? And we somehow underestimate the effect it has on your wrist, especially for a wrist which is getting less immune to such hard work. So I see that a lot of the times my grandmother do this in the afternoon in the sun. So she wanted to open this up because, so I really it's symbolic of the hands which have worked a lot. Let's take it like that.
Okay. The chief protagonist in your book, Prerna, is a failed chef, and you know a thing or two about failure as well. You're super successful, we all know that, but you've had a tryst with failure as well. Can you talk to us about that and what you learned from it?
कुछ पर्दा नशीनों के नाम भी आएंगे. So कहानी में, so I feel that There's so many people who are unveiled in your stories, you know. You don't want to expose them. And I do not buy that of somebody reaching any height in life. It could be you, Shreya, or anybody who's talking to me in that field. It's impossible to gain certain status or to gain certain acknowledgement or recognition without tasting massive failure. Of course, you can see that the way the restaurant closes. I have a glimpse of myself in 2008 when the economy of America fell down. There was a huge transition which happened to hospitality, and it really affected fine dining. And it really affected fine dining, high-end caterings, which I used to do. So everything shut down overnight. I remember that moment so clearly when I told my kitchen manager, he was Andrew, I said, Andrew, can you shut down the lights? And it hurt because every night we used to shut down the lights, but tomorrow we are not coming to turn them on. That scene had affected me so deeply. So I used my symbolisms of failure, which have, you know, that is when you know that the screenplay is so original because somebody has lived through parts of it. So in this film, when Shivana Azmi tells her assistant or the girl who takes the orders, can you please turn off the lights? And we keep, because the way I make movies, I want to have things happening in real time. And I was behind the camera shooting in this shabby kitchen where this girl turns off the lights one by one, and Shivana's eyes, oh my God, it affected me so much we had to take a break. And it affected Shivanaji also. We literally hugged and cried. I said, Shivanaji, I can't tell you the pain of shutting down a restaurant which is doing so well. And it shuts down not because it's fault of yours. It shuts down for so many different parameters in US. You know, lawsuits, labor issues, lease issues. There's so many complaints which happen about Indian food, especially when I was starting my life in America. I did take that pain, and I wanted to have people have empathy towards that pain when that journey ends. There's a line in the film that when I cook, I feel alive. I can bury all my pain in my kitchen. I just feel that now when the kitchen is shut down, she has no place to hide her pain. So I thought that was very poetic, it was very powerful, it happened to me many times, not just once. And I wanted to have people understand that this journey of someone who becomes a Michelin star chef, that how many people have shut down those kitchens and those lights before one kitchen gets to that international status where it becomes invincible.
They often say that failure teaches you more than success, and you tasted failure even as a young boy, boy trying to knit sweaters, get the funding, open your own catering business, helped by your mother and your grandmother, doesn't do too well. You go off, study hotel management, and you come back and launch a successful business. How cool is that? I love this story.
Really? You know, it's almost like when you just said that knitting sweaters, there's such a big thing which comes in front of me. It's the summer of the school, and when you're in your 8th grade or 9th grade, you know, you're a guy who's knitting sweaters. It's the society which looks at you a different way. Not your family so much. Your family understands why you're doing this, you know. But I do believe that for some people to come out and speak about this journey was necessary. And the reason I do this is because of my mom. It's entirely her decision that I go out and speak about this. She said that you need to speak to mothers or parents whose children are born with certain abilities or disabilities. You need to go out and speak to them. And you need to, because, you know, she said that I did not hear anyone tell me the story that this is going to be all okay. And that is what I absolutely love about this. And she's the one who lived this entire life and career with me. Though she's away from America, she doesn't understand the hardships of running big restaurants and businesses. But I know that she understands what I go through. But I do feel that some days you have a leader who comes out and talks about failure and normalizes falling apart, normalizes falling on you off the ground, literally. That everything gets dismissed and you lose everything what you've gained over the years. The point of me telling that story is, does not matter how many times you fall down, how quickly do you stand up again? For me, that is the reason. And every time I've fallen very deeply or in a dark space or everything was taken away from me, I always looked up to India, that I need to go back and I need to breathe again. And it was always in Varanasi somehow that I landed up, that I felt that there was much more to life than this project we just finished, and I need to recuperate and rise again. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do, but I want to ask you, you're from Amritsar, and yet you say when you need to live again or find inspiration, you go to Banaras. Why Banaras? I thought you would say Amritsar.
I can't explain that. It's the resting ground for my sister. It's a resting place for a lot of things which I had to let go. And somehow I feel that when my father passed away, I couldn't find peace, because I'm the same guy who is an opportunist, who left his aging parents back home to find the American dream. At least I acknowledge it. Varanasi is a city which gave me comfort. I felt that Varanasi told me that that's my little puppy. I think he wants to go to Varanasi too with me. And I feel that that city is something which it tells you so silently, so invisibly. And you get to know the real value of one thing when you're in Varanasi: time. That everything on this planet is impermanent. And that is to remind myself that, that is why it becomes a city of my rebirth and reincarnation, everything again and again.
Vikas, what is it? I mean, you are super successful at everything you've tried your hand at. I mean, your career has the diversity of Indian cuisine. You have, of course, been a super chef. You still are a super chef. You have written books, you have written novels, you have made documentaries, you have made films, you have opened restaurants, you have shut restaurants. How do you keep at it? That's too much work for one guy.
So, for people who are listening to me for the first time on this subject, it's a great question. I do everything myself. I've been writing. Most of the photography is also done by me.
Maybe your little puppy wants to be on the show.
Can you hold him and give it to me? Can you hold him and give it to me? How can it be so hard to hold a puppy, sir? You have to hold him, sir. If you never hold a puppy, you don't know how to hold a puppy. Okay, now get ready to fall in love with my brat. Oh, he jumped. Now everybody can see you. Perfect.
Oh.
Perfect. He's come from New York.
Hello. I think
I feel that,
I think he wanted to be on the show.
अच्छा पारू नमस्ते कर दे सबको नमस्ते कर दे ये मेरा बेबी है कर दिया नमस्ते गुड बहुत गुड बॉय बन गया आज so did you see the namaste? That's the only thing he knows how to do. So I feel for me the word sublimation has really helped me. Is it that you take all your brokenness, losses, you take everything what is broken about your life and you turn that into a work of art. I have always believed in that, always. That it's not the end and it's not the real loss, because I feel the true loss comes when you lose your parents or you lose a sibling. There's nothing more painful than that. I don't know. I hope. But I do feel that juggling between all these projects and different facets, I feel that I'm very privileged, and I understand that I can run a food campaign which can feed millions of people just on the power of my keyboard and social media accounts. I realize that privilege should be extended to telling stories of human power, our spirit as Indians, our victories, our cultural heritage. I feel that has become very essential to me as I'm getting older. I feel that has become more important to me than doing anything and owning any other assets. That cultural references, somebody told me one day, I said, you think, in this much money you can open 4 restaurants, but why do you want to open a museum? I said, because I feel I'm making my skin richer, and I'm making people of color richer if we present our heritage to the world like that. मुझे लगता है कि your priorities also change as you get older, and maybe because of that you're seeing extreme diversified work from me.
You know, one of the shows you've done many shows, cookery shows, and I've been a huge fan, just by the way. But the one show that I particularly loved was India's Mega Kitchens. You remember that one? And I have always wondered what food from Mega Kitchens tasted like, because you know, हमारे यहाँ बोलते हैं कि खाना बहुत बल्क में बने तो टेस्टी नहीं होता, अगर खाना कम क्वांटिटी में बने तभी टेस्टी होता है. But when I saw your show, I thought to myself, maybe that's not true.
Many things you're having, which is an extension of your kitchens, is done in bulk cooking. Humans primarily historically cooked in bulk, always. It's always bulk cooking. There were bigger pots, people got around a fire as commune and they cooked together. It was a form of safety. What has happened over the last few years, that we've become extremely nuclear. Everybody wants to eat a different cuisine in their homes. When we were kids, only two dishes were made. एक गीली सब्जी, एक सूखी सब्जी. This is what they was called. And फुलके मिलेंगे सबको गिनती के, and nobody is allowed to waste a single pea on the plate. I remember getting slapped on my head by my grandmom of saying that, you know, you cannot waste in my kitchen. And I do feel that bulk cooking was happening. Cooking bulk में हो या कुछ हो, you know, it's also the intentions of the cooking. I feel that's extremely important. Some days, even in small cooking, what guarantee is it that that is going to be delicious? When you're eating langars and you're eating in this big community kitchens, or you know, my whole life was built of promoting those kitchens and advocating for them. I feel that it is the intent of the cuisine or the food or the people who are cooking, and they intend to have the power to share it. It can't be restricted to the size of pots.
You've cooked for many, many VIPs. You've cooked for heads of states. You've cooked for Barack Obama. You've cooked for Dalai Lama. You've cooked for Prime Minister Modi. Who's had the most refined sense of cuisine? Someone who knows his food, knows his flavors, her flavors, knows texture, knows substance. Who's been that one person for whom it's been an absolute joy to cook?
I do feel cooking for Chef Gordon Ramsay, I worked with him, was really a delight. I could understand him, understanding what I'm trying to do. And we started our friendship, like, you know, I've known him for a long time. In 2006, I started working with him on different projects, and we partnered on some. And I feel that what he helped me refine about Indian food, not that Indian food is in refinement, what he taught me about tasting menu. And I think that became a forte for many years, until I said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to serve hearty Indian comfort food to people. And as I saw Gordon and witnessed my change of my cooking styles happened in different restaurants, I do feel that Chef Ramsay really helped me. And there was another chef in America, Chef Eric Ripert. So Chef Eric Ripert is possibly one of the most respected chefs in the world. He truly helped me to refine in many ways. You know, especially when I was doing foods from Himalayas and Northeast and all those countries, and Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, Burma, he became a big reference point, and I'm proud that I present many things to him what I cook. So I also get a perspective of them, you know. And these are the chefs who were the first ones on the planet who would always tell me that this cooking deserves a Michelin star. Even I did not believe it, and many people in my team didn't believe it. And these two chefs stood by me. It's always been about refining the textures in dishes and understanding the ratios, also very important, especially in the meat cooking. I feel that it has really helped me.
So it's more fun to cook for a chef than for a celebrity or a head of state. Is that what you're telling me? For example, I was very curious to know what the Dalai Lama would want to eat.
So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I cooked for them food from Amdo. Amdo is the city where he was born and raised. So I visited Tibet because I absolutely love his roots and his love for his home. And I cooked dishes which his mother would have cooked. And you know, that is a good gift of I have doing the same thing over and over for more than 37 years, is that you observe and you can retain things in your mind to cook similarly. It can't be the same, to cook something similar. So for him, I cooked meals from his hometown in Amdo. Once it was in Bodh Gaya during Kal Chakra, and then I did a book on him, and that was his 80th birthday. And then I did the whole cake made out of breads from his hometown, of course in my version. I just feel that you feel so privileged that your food can reach people whose minds and whose thoughts are becoming, who are so important to our generation because of the peace they spread and their wisdom. So some days you feel under pressure, but most of the time you just want to be honest to what you're doing for them, and it has to connect to them in some way.
Vikas, can I ask you what your comfort food is? Khichdi is everyone's comfort food, so you can't say that, but otherwise what?
Khichdi, of course, but I can't say that. It's my, there's nothing which gives you more comfort like that. It's a razayat of khichdi, that wholehearted warmth and silkiness, and it's too many emotions for most of the Indians. But for me, it's also raat ki bachi hui sabzi ke parathe. It's like Indian kitchens always understood more than any global cuisine of understanding recycling. So रात को आपकी मेथी आलू and मटर बच गए, या फिर गोभी आलू बच गई, गोभी बच गई, आलू मसाला बच गया. How that gets transformed into paratha. I used to love that because that is really an extremely wholehearted flavors. All those flavors were so content and they were so satisfying, and when they were turned into a paratha which was crispy on the outside and so buttery and creamy on the inside, I feel that is where it gets me kick every time I try to recreate or try to eat it.
My last question as I let you go, it's been 37 years that you've been a super chef. When you look back on your journey, for you, what have been the big learnings?
You've asked me one of the most significant questions right at the termination of this interview. It was that you need to care less. This is, if I have to give my advice to my younger self, I'll say you need to care less. People who come to intimidate you, who constantly remind you that you can't be on the top because you don't speak well, or your skin color, or your accent, or your vocabulary, you need to care less about them. You've been gifted with certain craft, and all those people who are coming here pounding your head is to demoralize you, is to intimidate you, because they feel intimidated themselves. Certain parts of them are so insecure that they need to find a way to push you. So as a younger Vikas, I'll tell him that do not worry about these people, and you live every part of this journey with full grace and glory. You don't need to change your accents. You don't need to be taking pictures with white people and posting round the clock saying how superior you are now. You don't need to ever let anyone tell you that Indian food is inferior than the Western or European cuisines. Do not give a damn. You were born in certain ways out of billions of combinations to certain parents in certain cities. There's a reason for that. Be proud of it. I became proud much later, about my cuisine, when I became like, no, stop telling me. The world should stop imposing this on people, that French cuisine and European and Spanish and French, Japanese, and this cuisine is better than that cuisine. No, you were born to a certain cuisine. You fell in love with it. You trained in it. Now go and display it. Do not be intimidated. That's my answer.
That's very good advice as well. Vikas Khanna, what a pleasure it has been speaking to you. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on Mirror Now, and all the very best.
Likewise.